Before I begin this analysis, I would like to give a disclaimer. If you are watching this video in the hopes that I will poke fun at C-5-Air for the duration of the video, you will be disappointed. We are about to embark on an immersive journey into the real life of artist and rapper C-5-Air. Not only will we take a look at C-5-Air's real life, we will analyze each stanza of his latest album, We Are Not the Same. Most do not perceive C-5-Air as a serious artist, and for good reason too. His voice is unpleasant, he lacks melody, he makes no sense, is often ingenuine, and he lacks self-awareness in his music. His music is also not relatable, it does not open a third eye, and it doesn't have any catchy lyrics. For most people, that's a deal breaker. But what if C-5-Air isn't trying to fit any of those boxes? Can we truly label him as a bad artist, even if he doesn't care about our criteria or standards? What is his music about? Before we analyze his album, let's talk about the man behind the name. C-5-Air's real name is Cameron Dakota Lane Vare. He lived the first few years of his life in a small town in Illinois. He lived with his mother, brother, and abusive father. Neither of his parents made a lot of money. In fact, nobody in his family made a lot of money. C-5-Air's father eventually left his family when he was very young, leaving his mother with the two boys alone, making little money. His mother moved to Linton, Indiana shortly after, where she still resides today, taking care of terminally ill seniors in their homes. Linton is a small rural town in southern Indiana, known for its history of coal mining and bars. Throughout his childhood, Cameron's mother often worked to support her two boys. This left C-5-Air to be under the supervision of his older brother. Unfortunately, C-5-Air did not have a typical relationship with his older brother growing up. His brother beat him and took aggression out on him frequently. Despite the aggressive relationship, Cameron still idolized and praised his brother, even wearing his older brother's clothes and wanting to follow in his footsteps. There is not much known about C-5-Air's older brother, however I do know that he joined the military when he was 18 and served 4 years. Once he returned home as a civilian, he moved to Evansville, Indiana, to deal drugs out of what was essentially a watered-down trap house. C-5-Air lived the majority of his teenage years away from his brother as they did not get along. C-5-Air lived at the same house with his mother for his whole life and had very few friends. The relationships that he did make always dwindled quickly. He had lots of pent-up anger as a child, which made his peers dislike and outcast him. Life never seemed fair to Cameron, which led to delinquent behavior. The lack of attention and opportunity was the perfect concoction to lead him to public outbursts, often fighting or causing a scene with total strangers. Anything to get eyes on him. As a teen, he was fired from a handful of jobs, even banned from one workplace for engaging in a physical altercation with a customer. He never had any self-control. Going through relationships left and right, he was never successful. He then left the school in Linton and moved to a smaller school in a smaller town named Duggar, Indiana. While he did find more success in this town, he was still spending his free time under the supervision of the Greene County Courthouse. C-5-Air was no stranger to probation, courtrooms, or juvenile detention. After serving his time and coming off probation, C-5-Air graduated from Duggar Union High School, probation-free and diplomaed. After doing yard work for a summer, C-5-Air decided he was meant for much more than this. He moved to Evansville with his brother, which was a questionable choice considering their already rocky relationship. C-5-Air's brother let him live out of the trap house with him where they both sold carts, weed, and supposedly cocaine. C-5-Air reports to have made significant amounts of money during this time, but there is no proof of this. After a couple years of dealing, C-5-Air moved back to his mom's house in Linton, claiming that he was suffering high levels of abuse from his brother. Even now, during their 20s, they cannot get along. He claimed his brother is a raging alcoholic who loves to fight, and that his brother beats him terribly often, and that he could not bear it anymore. During this time, C-5-Air had begun his rap career, rapping over the beats made by an ex-friend from middle school. C-5-Air would record in his friend's garage after doing copious amounts of marijuana. If you are familiar with C-5-Air, you may remember some of his early singles, such as Friendly, Mars,
we go, boy. Listen up. Everyone
or possibly Back of My Benz. True fans may be familiar with his debut album Trap House, an unorthodox sub-half-hour 8-track project demonstrating his drug lord, danger-ridden artist persona, which gives an insight to his lifestyle and unapologetic arrogance. There was no distinct sound to C-5-Air at this time other than anti-melodic grumbling over melodic instrumentals. This project was C-5-Air putting his foot into the door, offering a semi-unserious project to demonstrate his refusal to follow mainstream expectations. After being on a steady roll recording, C-5-Air's producer broke ties with him and canceled further album progress after allegations that he had stalked people escalated online. This meant C-5-Air's debut album was limited to 8 tracks due to legitimate inability to record rather than lack of inspiration or creativity. 2 years later, and the very person who made the initial post about him reached out to admit that it had been fabricated to harm his image. This led to the repair of the relationship between Cameron and his producer. This is what leads us to We Are Not the Same, an album released on July 16, 2025, again recorded entirely in his producer's garage. C-5-Air ritualistically only recorded the 7 tracks of his project between the hours of 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. Again, C-5-Air did not record any of the tracks on his album without smoking copious amounts of THC and nicotine from his preferred geek bars. And as history repeats itself, another controversy would now finalize the disdain between C-5-Air and his producer, leaving another project cut early. Without further ado, let's dig into this album, starting with the artwork itself. C-5-Air's producer and distributor disrespectfully used an image of a wife beater for the cover, as a play on the fact that C-5-Air was beating his girlfriend, which are the allegations we were talking about earlier. C-5-Air admitted to slapping his girlfriend while on a phone call while in the presence of his producer. This led to his producer using voice memos to secretly record C-5-Air admitting to these crimes. This was not the first time that C-5-Air had been secretly recorded by his producer, as we hear a voice memo from the other phone call in the opening track. In fact, we hear several voice memos throughout this album that were edited in by his producer to ruin credibility and image. While they tell a unique story about Cameron's true character, I will be ignoring them for the most part, as they are not artistic decisions implemented by C-5-Air. They are not meant to interfere with the album's motive or story. Track 1 is titled We Are Not the Same, which is also the album title. So it is obvious the first track is important to the album's meaning. Let's dive in.
No money, just lent. I went through hell for a bag as a kid. When you're 13, you got bronze new kicks. When I was 13, I got locked in the pen.
Alright, off the bat, C-5-Air is referencing his upbringing. He's saying that he grew up in a family with little money, as we know is true. There could also be a subtle hint to the town in which he grew up in, Linton. No money, just lint. Kind of like Linton. He states that money was not easy to come by for him when he was young, likely due to his environment. Very little money all around him, so he had to work tirelessly to come up with cash, in which he refers to as a bag, a common slang term for a large sum of cash. In the third line, he begins separating himself from the listener already. When you were 13, you got bronze new kicks. When I was 13, I got locked in a pen. C-5-Air is pushing the idea that he has not been the same as you from early on. As many know, shoes are often a giveaway to one's financial status. Shoes can often represent class. In this case, C-5-Air is using the LeBron's basketball shoes, which were highly popular and expensive during the time that he was in middle school, as a marker of status. It is not just a line about shoes. He's drawing the line between his socioeconomic status amongst his peers growing up. They were receiving new, expensive shoes while he was locked in a pen, a reference to his stint spent in juvenile detention as a young teenager.
3 yellow diamonds for a bitch who fuck with me. 2 middle fingers to the ones who hate on thee. Only kid who had a vision, one you can't see. Now the only way to see me is to pay a fee.
Here, C-5-Air begins to shift subjects as he begins talking about giving 3 yellow diamonds to any woman who becomes romantically or intimately involved with him. While this demonstrates his wealth, it actually goes much deeper. 3 yellow diamonds has 2 meanings. On one hand, they represent the past, present, and the future of a relationship, but it can also represent love, trust, and respect, which are all themes commonly tied into C-5-Air's music. His next line, 2 middle fingers to the ones who hate on me. This seems like a quick filler bar, but when broken down has much more depth than it may seem. It becomes apparent that he's beginning a countdown, starting this line with the number 2, as the line before this starts with the number 3. It's clear he's starting a countdown. C-5-Air is saying fuck the haters with both of his middle fingers up to those who do not believe in him. The bar also contains the words, to the ones, like 2 ones, which we all know 2 ones is 2. The bar also contains the word ones, which would finish his 3-2-1 countdown itself right there in that single line, but C-5-Air knew this would go over your head, and he doubles down in the next bar. Only kid who has a vision, 1 you can't see. C-5-Air gives it to you plain and simple here, finishing the countdown of 3-2-1 for sure. He's also playing with the words vision and see. To have vision is to see, which he's saying that his haters cannot, meaning that they have no vision or that his vision is far beyond their comprehension and ability to understand. He has elevated himself so much that he would not allow himself to hang around just anybody now. You must pay cash up front if you want any time with him at all. This can suggest that his vision is so strong, even being around him is so personally beneficial that you should be charged a fee for the experience or knowledge that you may gain.
Step up, let the dice pay the rent. My account passed out when she saw the money spent. 20? No. 30? No. 40? No. 50? No. Please don't ask me about the Neros. Blow it all till I hit 0. If you can't look in the mirror, steer your advice away from here.
Branching off his previous line, C-5-Air invites the audience to step up and roll the dice with him, a reference to gambling. Within this line, he says let the dice pay your rent, which implies that C-5-Air gambles big money, quantities large enough to pay one's rent. And C-5-Air does not specify which area the rent would be paid in, meaning he's confident the money he's moving during gambling could pay even the highest of rents in high-income areas. This bar proves how C-5-Air's bars scaffold, as this could also be what he means by, the only way to see me is to pay a fee. To be around him, you must be one who takes risks. Someone who's willing to gamble thousands of dollars in dice games at a time. He mentions that his accountant physically fainted when she saw how much money that he had been spending recently. This bar is meant to intimidate his opponent or whoever he's gambling against. He begins counting upward this time, increasing figures from 20 all the way up to 50, of course meaning $20,000 all the way up to $50,000. He says no after every number, meaning even these large figures aren't enough to represent how much money he's been spending. He avoids giving a direct number, likely because he has achieved such through illegal and non-taxable means, playing the government to his benefit. He asks you not to ask him about dineros, aka money, then states that he'll blow it all till he hits 0. In a way, he's saying, don't worry about me, officer, no money here. Finishing the rhyme scheme with, if you can't look in the mirror, steer your advice away from here. Just another way of him saying that if you aren't on his level, you can't tell him shit.
Oh, I'm free, you're a puppet, bitch, your strings attached. Everything I say is real, but you steady spitting whack. You pussies lame, I brush you off like y'all some plaque. Y'all be tripping, snitching, fuck y'all, here's some cheese for all you rats.
C-5-Air again shifts his subject matter, leaving money behind for a minute, and is now coming after a woman or love interest. He calls his love interest a puppet because their love comes with strings attached. He may be realizing she's using him for his money. He follows up by saying everything he says is real, but you steady spitting whack, suggesting that he has kept it real throughout the relationship. However, this woman has been lying to deceive him, likely for his money. This bar leads him to a series of lines ranting about the disloyalty and deception of those closely around him, calling them lame, and that he can brush them off like plaque. A disrespectful comparison, meaning it is effortless to be rid of such unnecessary gross people. He finishes this section by stressing how the people around him are tripping and snitching, both unwanted behaviors that go against C-5-Air's moral street code, calling them rats and saying that he has cheese for them. Connecting to his line about his friend snitching, the cheese could be a metaphor for setting a trap to kill the ones who snitched on him, but it also leads directly into the chorus of his song, suggesting that he's about to speak some truth.
We're not the same, though, we're not the same. We're not the same, though, we're not the same. We're not the same, though, we're not the same. We're not the same, though. You're a fucking lame.
During this chorus, C-5-Air pleads that he is not the same as the listener 7 times. Clearly desperate to show the listener how he truly feels. He doesn't say it once, he repeats it as a full chorus. He means it, finishing the chorus by calling the listener a lame. Now this raises questions. Why would an artist outright diss his listener? What good does that do for him? Well, These would be good questions if C-5-Air was trying to fit a mold, but it's becoming obvious that C-5-Air is not rapping to sell out, he's rapping to express his feelings. This line itself represents C-5-Air's feelings towards the outside world. As the track progresses, it begins to feel like C-5-Air categorizes his listener in with his haters, expressing a disliking towards them.
I got tunnel vision now, see through fucks. How you switch up over bitches, not even bucks. Made his eyes black, circles call him hockey puck. That little boy, I think I saw his waist, he ain't got nothing tucked.
Here the beat switches up to a more violent and aggressive tone with the steady 808 pulsing the beat forward. This could be an artistic choice of C-5-Air, as his lyrics begin to switch on the listener. Now the beat has also changed to further immerse the audience in C-5-Air's true feelings about them. His first line after the change mentions how he sees through everyone now, calling everyone fucks. He then questions how people become disloyal over the relationship with the woman over the relationship with money. This line gives more insight to C-5-Air's moral code. He believes it's more important to be loyal to money than it is to be loyal to a woman. He quickly shifts topics again, now mentioning that he physically assaulted someone, giving them 2 black eyes in which he refers to as hockey pucks. He does not directly state why he did this, but one could assume it is because someone in his circle has disobeyed his moral code, putting a woman over their grind for the bag, as he would say. This resulted in a brutal beating and humiliating nickname meant to degrade the disloyal partner. He finishes the stanza with, "That little boy a fake, I saw his waist, he ain't got nothing tucked." Here, C-5-Air is still calling out the same street code breaking partner. He's further discrediting the person by saying that they took this beating and didn't have a gun to protect themselves, another violation of C-5-Air's moral street code. In a way, he's telling a story of how he had to teach an individual in his circle a lesson to show them why the code is the way it is.
These are warning shots, and we are not the same. Don't put the coin in if you don't think you gon' win the game. You know this shit rigged, you know what this is. Walk in with riches, walk out with stitches and empty bridges.
Now we hear 2 gunshots in the beat, which are a clear artistic choice as C-5-Air directly mentions these gunshots with the line, "These are warning shots." This could be used to regain the listener's attention while painting the soundscape that C-5-Air is shooting close to you, in order to scare you or give you a warning. He then slips in another, "We are not the same," before telling the listener not to put the coin in if they don't think they're going to win the game, which is a poetic way of saying not to waste your time, because going against him is like playing a game that is rigged. You are bound to lose, and once you do, you will wake up on the ground with empty pockets.
I'm burning bridges, yeah I'm committing to bullshitting, true Sin City. Sense my instinct, lie to incense, need my soul cleansed.
C-5-Air closes the first track out by making a few comments about what his life is currently like. He's begun removing people from his life, likely those mentioned earlier in this track. You know, the puppets and the rats. He's no longer committing to these people, as they offer him nothing. So he's now only committing to bullshitting, which could mean that he's no longer taking things seriously. He will do what he wants, when he wants, and won't need to give any true justification. He proceeds by wallowing in his sin braggadociously, proud to be involved in no good, so much that we should perform a ritual in which we need to light an incense to clean his soul. Now before we move on to track number 2, let's recap what this first track truly accomplishes. This track opens with a callback to a rather impoverished upbringing in which he used to separate himself from the audience and those he grew up around. The story shifts, separating himself in terms of lack of money to separating himself due to a plethora of money. This poses an interesting idea. C-5-Air is suggesting that what truly separated him as a kid and what separates him now was his socioeconomic class and not his identity. The separation in class led to a disadvantaged upbringing. This is like being dealt a bad deck of cards. After the hardships he faced during childhood, he now flexes his newfound financial status on those who were above and bullied him as a child. The end of track 1 keeps pushing the dangerous and threatening nature of C-5-Air as the first and second track are connected through a series of gunshots. Let's listen to how we enter the second track of the album, walk away.
Shit to say. I don't need to walk away. I don't need to walk away. If you don't talk money, need to shut your mouth and walk away. Shut your mouth and walk away. I don't need no money, need no.
A seamless connection between the first and second track, masked by a gunshot. If that does not scream C-5-Air, I don't know what does. We immediately jump into a darker sound in track 2, using multiple audio clips to piece together one verse. The clips show more of C-5-Air's arrogance. He doesn't need anyone in his face. He already knows it all, so there's nothing you can tell him. He doubles down on the idea that you are the one who needs to walk away, not him. He then flexes his money on you, further implying that there is nothing you can offer him, not even money.
Who are you? Goody two who follows rules. Who is me? Rock your daddy on the street. Who are they? Guys that paid it in your day. Who are we? We are not the same, how I get paid.
The first true verse of Walk Away immediately begins with C-5-Air once again drawing a clear line between you and him. Who are you? He asks the listener, but he answers for the listener, calling them a goody two-shoes who follows all the rules, painting the listener as someone who doesn't have the backbone to question authority, a follower, or a sheep if you will. He then asks, who is me? He answers with, rob yo daddy on the street, showing how he is distancing himself from the rest of us. He's saying that he is dominant, even over the head of a traditional household, the father. Using ad-libs like, run it, mocking the listener as if they're listening to C-5-Air tell their father to run his pockets. C-5-Air wants the listener to feel as he has just robbed their father, which would make most listeners feel frustrated, aka exactly what he wants to achieve with this bar. He then asks you, who are they? Guys I paid to end your day. Which literally seems as if C-5-Air points behind the listener, asking you to turn back and look at the hitmen who are ready to take your life for money. Finishing his stanza with, who are we? We are not the same, ho I get paid. Again pushing the idea that he is not the same due to his financial status.
Hey, change, tell him keep the change, 20 bands, give him 60K. I don't need no break to sell a stage. I'm a rage on the day that I can pay it. Foreign waves that came off a boat overseas, like my music overseas you.
We begin entering territory in this track where C-5-Air expresses his desire for materialism mixed with his carelessness with money, telling us he bought jewelry, particularly chains, and told his jeweler to keep the change, which is not something somebody would typically say when making large purchases, like expensive chains. He tells us that the chains cost $20,000, but he gave the jeweler $60,000, allowing the jeweler to keep the remaining $40,000 as change. This bar could also be a callback to the 20, 30, 40, 50 bar, where he states $50,000 is still not enough to describe how much he recently spent. The $60,000 on jewelry is well above that $50,000. Next, he states that he doesn't need braids to sell a stage, which could mean that he doesn't need a typical rapper appearance to make it big. He can look like himself, him with his buzz cut, and still be an icon. He tells us that he will not only rage whenever he no longer possesses the necessary funds required to purchase a German-engineered automobile, but he will also rage whenever he cannot afford the additional costs to have said vehicle shipped on a boat overseas. Then makes a play on words, where he mentions that his music oversees you, the listener, pushing the idea that you cannot see his vision, and furthering the notion that he has officially tied the listener in as one of his enemies.
You don't get it, that's okay. You don't live it, that's okay. You don't dig it, that's okay. I don't need nobody telling me how I should live my life. If you really think you got the answers, take your own advice.
Now C-5-Air taunts those who do not see his vision with, you don't get it, you don't live it, you don't dig it. How much more does he need to separate himself? I mean, he gets it, you don't. He lives it, you don't. He digs it, you don't. He has no interest in helping you understand either. He just tells you, it's okay. Almost as if he feels sorry that you aren't on his same wavelength, like a verbal pat on the back. He's saying, maybe next time, buddy. It's meant to be patronizing. He tells those who do not understand his lifestyle that he does not need their advice, and that they should take their own advice instead of offering it to him.
No, I can't can't lend you space inside my head like you're all lice. I'm allergic to the weak, she trusts my epi with my life. They don't like the way I live, tell me why. Couple verses got you living with your hands tied. I ain't talking rap, I'm talking about your morals. You can wear your Sunday best, but I'll stay wearing pearls.
After denying an outsider's advice, he continues telling us that he cannot let anyone influence him or get into his head. He must run on his own thoughts and opinions, not yours. He cannot lend any space in his head to an individual offering advice as if they would be as harmful to his head as a lice is to one's hair and scalp. He's letting you know that your opinion and advice is as unwanted as parasites such as lice. He then says he is allergic to the weak shit, which has a double meaning. C-5-Air is saying that he cannot surround himself with lame people who are not on his level. He is allergic to that weak shit. It is also a reference to how C-5-Air has grown a tolerance for only the most potent drugs. He is saying his body no longer reacts well to weak, bad, or fake drugs. He's saying that he needs the good shit, the strong shit, ending his bar with a rhyme about an epi since he is allergic to weak shit. He says that he trusts the epi with his life, obviously talking about an EpiPen, but he is not talking about seasonal allergies or anaphylactic shock. The epi in this case is likely Narcan that he keeps on him, trusting it to save his life if he receives bad drugs. He says they don't like the way that he lives and asks for the listener to then tell him why. He responds with his belief, which is that a couple verses have people living with their hands tied. He says this line is not about rap verses, but actually about Bible verses and how they force people to live by a code that is not theirs. This ties to the idea that he brought up earlier, that the audience is sheep and followers who are goody two-shoes who live by authority rather than thinking for themselves. He pokes fun at religious people who try to impose their way of living onto him by telling them that they can keep wearing their Sunday best while he wears his pearls, again showing the difference between them and him. They can continue to wear what societal expectations tell them to, while he can wear whatever he wants, which happens to be very expensive clothing and jewelry because nobody tells him what to wear. C-5-Air goes back into his verse here, where we have the chopped up samples going back and forth of him telling us that he doesn't need any money, and that he does not need to walk away, and that we have nothing to offer him.
Two stupid bitches trying to fuck up my rep, posting on media, man, or trying to get slept. I don't name drop, but you really tripped up my set. Bristle, honestly, I wanna see a rope on your neck.
Here, C-5-Air targets two women who made Facebook posts about him online, pinning him as a creep who stalked various women. This is the same situation that led to C-5-Air's producer cutting him off, leading to the premature finalization of his debut Trap House album. He now has this voice back, and is dissing them for what they said about him publicly. He is threatening them, saying that they are trying to get slept, which means that they are asking to be jumped or killed. He says that he will not name drop them, but they really tripped up his set, slang for throwing a wrench into his plans, putting a halt to his everyday grind, and damaging his reputation. One bar after saying he will not name drop, C-5-Air name drops the woman who made the initial Facebook post about him, rapping, "Bristol, honestly, I want to see a rope on your neck," explaining his strong feelings towards the accuser, wishing that she would commit suicide via hanging. Not only does C-5-Air wish for the suicide of this person who accused him, he would also like to witness it with his own eyes.
Speaking of next, Veronica lost hers. Bitch needs to join Weight Watchers. Hitting up my homie trying to say it wasn't true. Now we know not to listen to what's spewing out of you.
He now name drops the second woman involved in the post, a woman by the name of Veronica. He ties her into the line about Bristol's suicide to a bar about Veronica's sudden weight gain, then telling her that she needs to join Weight Watchers due to the frightening amount of weight that she's gained, clearly letting off steam after what they did to his reputation. He then mentions how Bristol eventually reached out to his producer to ask to be put back into contact with C-5-Air because everything they said on the post was a lie. C-5-Air uses this admittance to discredit anything the women may ever say again.
I admitted what, I slapped her? Bitch, she got in my face and spit on me? I didn't tell her that.
So here we got the beat breakdown while C-5-Air's vocal chops continued to let go. That's where we heard the voice memo from C-5-Air admitting to domestic violence. Now as we exit this last chop section, we'll get the repeat of a C-5-Air verse.
Who gritty to who follows rules. Who is me? Rob your daddy on the street. Who are they? Guys that paid it in your day. Who are we? We are not the same, how I get paid. Yeah, I got paid for those voices serenades. Punched him up, now he hide his face like masquerade. 2 eye holes, only needed one for the scope. I got big guns, shit that Jake can't buy if he broke.
Here he brags about how his voice is bringing him wealth. He gets paid for his voice because it serenades the listener, bragging about how his complex lyrics have a seductive quality. And we know from past songs, such as Run 'Em Down, that his music has a seductive effect on women. In Run 'Em Down, he sings lines like, "Can't resist when I spit, saw her eyes open big."
Can't resist when I spit, saw her eyes open big.
So he's just continuing that narrative that his voice and rapping ability works similarly to a mating dance. C-5-Air then references another physical altercation with the line, "Punched him up, now he hide his face like masquerade." This could be a callback to the guy he called Hockey Puck after giving 2 black eyes, or it could be a totally new victim. He states that the person he beat was so embarrassed of their beating that they wore clothes to cover their bruises and scars, similarly to how people hide their faces with masks during a masquerade party. Branching off the image of the masquerade mask, C-5-Air says 2 eye holes, which connects the image of the mask to only needing one of 2 eyes for the scope of his gun. His last line warns us that he has big guns, plural, not just one, multiple, and that you must have lots of money to afford the weapons that he possesses. This is where he leaves off for track number 2. And before we dig into track number 3, let's talk about what's happened so far. The album has clearly gone in a more lyrically sound direction than his previous projects, and while we're only 2 tracks in, there's definitely been more connection between the 2 songs. Bars that seemingly relate to one another and feel as if they're branching off of one another. This is not something that I think I've heard in previous C-5-Air projects. I also don't feel as if we stagnated in track 1. We definitely moved after track 2, and he made it very clear that he is serious and cannot stress enough that our separation in class has and remains to be his motivation to continue the lifestyle he lives. Let's see how track number 3 fits in.
Mama raised me from the dirt. I ain't have no people looking out for me, so I got hurt. Family, bitches, homies, teachers, cops and more. Man, what for? Father hit the fucking door when I hit 4, but I still got my ass up.
The opening of track 3 begins with a sad piano progression that loops over high-pitched vocals that sing out in the background. In the beginning, they seem distant and muted, but once C-5-Air begins rapping, the background voices open up and become more clear to support his lyrics. It is noticeable that this track will be an emotional one before he even says a single word. He opens the song by referencing his mother, which he does a lot, but this time he's stating how she had to raise him from the dirt, meaning that they came from very little. He says that he had nobody looking out for him from a young age, which led him to getting hurt. Here's C-5-Air finally opening up about his early childhood and specifying how his disadvantages actually affected him. Without proper role models or anyone to look out for him, C-5-Air never had anyone to tell him when he was going down the wrong path or when he was hanging around the wrong people. His relationships with women led him to pain, and so did his friendships. He could never see what was best for him, and there was nobody to tell him. He gives us a list of all the people who he has felt did him wrong throughout his life. That list includes his family members, love interests, friends, educators, police, and more. To most, these are the immediate support systems, but for C-5-Air, that was never the case. These are the people he felt judged and pushed down by the most. He finishes this line with the bar about how his father left his family when he was only 4 years old, yet he does not let that stop him from achieving success. While this might be an excuse for others to not reach their dreams, C-5-Air is different, and this is motivation for him. Offering inspiration to those who may have grown up in a similar environment, he's saying, no matter what happens, you must keep going. This is a true theme here in track number 3, which he has clearly learned throughout his real-life struggles.
Hey, never had it easy. Please don't tell me about it when you ain't seen shit that I seen. Talking all that nonsense, man, you sound just like a dope fiend. All I see is soft and I'm vanilla, call that ice cream.
C-5-Air jumps right into talking about the hardships he has faced. He claims that he has never had it easy, then asking you to not tell him anything about anything unless you have witnessed the same things he has witnessed. That is a strange way of him telling you that your advice won't work for him. He is programmed differently due to what he has been exposed to. He keeps pushing this line, saying that your advice sounds like nonsense and makes you seem like a drug addict who is out of their mind. Then he calls the listener soft and calls himself vanilla, which is a reference to his skin color, mixing the two as soft serve ice cream. The ice cream bar connects phonetically to when C-5-Air says "I seen" 2 lines ago, which sounds like icing, mixing icing with ice cream.
When I had 10, I stole me a blick, robbed a stove, I made it a lick. Didn't steal money, I stole me some food. Gave it to mama, I showed her the loot. She wasn't happy, she whooped my ass. That was the first lesson I had. Left me a mark, my mama was starved. To make sure I'm straight, I don't fall far.
Here, C-5-Air tells us a story about a time from when he was 10 years old. He remembers stealing a gun, which he refers to as a blick, then using this gun to rob a convenience store. Now, C-5-Air does not currently have a charge for robbery, so it is likely that the gun gave him the confidence to steal from other places, rather than putting the clerk at gunpoint. He mentions that he did not steal money, and that he just stole food for him and his mother. Doing petty crime like this at the age of 10 shows just how different C-5-Air's childhood was from that of a typical preteen. He also states that instead of being proud of what he had stole, his mother whooped his ass for stealing the food, showing early on that this was his only positive role model and sense of support. She did not care about going hungry. She cared that her son grew up to be a decent man. A realization that he writes was the first lesson he remembered learning that truly left a mark on him. He says that his mother would starve to make sure he's straight and doesn't fall far from what she wants for him. What does she want from him? He will tell us in the next line.
Straight, I don't fall far from what they want from me. Couple M's and a couple babies. Take my kid to Nana, take his pick with saying that beanie's not bananas, hold his hand forever.
C-5-Air now tells us what it is that his mother wants for him, which is a couple M's and a couple babies. This suggests that his mother wishes a happy family with financial freedom upon him. He expresses that he also desires this lifestyle over the gang street life, with the line, "Take my kid to Nana, take his pick with Santa, beanies not bandanas, hold his hand forever," showing that he desires to have a child who he can take to visit grandma, go to the mall to get pictures with Santa Claus, wears festive beanies rather than ski masks or bandanas to represent gang affiliation, and that he will hold his son's hand forever. C-5-Air uses the pronoun his in this line, although he does not actually have a child. This gives insight into his mind. He clearly hopes to one day have a son, potentially because he would like to be the father he did not have, as clearly supported by his previous lines.
I want to change the path. I come from a place where people don't last. The growing is slow, the money is fast. I fucked up my race and I raced due to wrath.
He says that he wants to change the path, further proving that his previous bars are referencing his desire to be a better father than his own. He wants to change the path of his family history. He will be the change to end the trauma that has been passed down from generation to generation within his family. He then tells us that he comes from a place where life is fickle, and that each day could be your last. He says the growing is slow, which is likely a reference to the slow personal growth that occurs to those living in his hometown. This is a diss on those he grew up around, dissing the same society that outcasted him, calling their growth slow by comparing it to the speed in which he makes money. He finishes this phrase with an alliteration-filled line, "fucked up my wraith and a race due to wrath," with the repeated R sound. Demonstrating his subtle complexity, he is also rhyming words that contain silent W's, like wraith and wrath. This could reference how he is taking silent W's behind his haters.
I feel like tying a knot. I feel like tying a knot. I feel like tying a knot. I feel like eating a shot. I feel like I'm tying a knot. I feel like I'm tying a knot. I feel like I'm tying a knot around my neck and the pressure won't stop. Can't die like this, got too much shit to live for. Got bands like Robert Stretch and spend them, never live poor. I know that struggle lived it 20 years. I know that pain I done dropped all my tears.
C-5-Air begins repeating how he feels like he is trying to tie a knot around his neck, which symbolizes that he feels like he cannot breathe. He's becoming consumed by his past and feels suffocated by it. He also mentions that the pressure won't stop. This could be due to the high expectations that he sets for himself, acknowledging that he will always live in a state of pressure because he sets it upon himself. He says that he has too much to live for than to end his life over extreme pressure and stress. This part of the track seems like C-5-Air is taking us directly into his mind, admitting that while he is on the road to greatness, he still holds traumatizing memories from the past that continue to challenge him. He begins motivating himself within the track by saying that he has bands like rubber, meaning his money is elastic and can stretch very far. He says to stretch and spend his money so that he never feels poor, stating that he has spent too much time living in poverty and sadness already, 20 years to be exact.
Gotta take what I gotta take.
The beat breaks into a descending piano sequence that can be symbolizing the tears falling, as C-5-Air mentions. The beat cuts out as we hear another audio clip edited in by C-5-Air's producer.
Miles are dry, wanna know why? I spend a lot of my time crying. Got it all out, now I feel fine. Unless you ask if I'm alright.
He tells us that he no longer has tears falling, as he spent much time crying. He claims to have gotten out all of his emotions, and now he's back to normal. However, if you personally ask him if he's doing alright, you might find out that he doesn't truly mean it.
I don't have PTSD, but I got ADHD. Chillin' has never been for me. I've been steady active in the streets.
Demonstrating a triplet feel in his flow, C-5-Air tells us that despite all he's witnessed and endured throughout his life, he does not believe he has PTSD, although he does have ADHD. He builds off this line by saying that chilling has never been for him and that he is steady active in the streets. C-5-Air is using lines like chilling isn't for him and that he is active to tie to the idea of ADHD. People with ADHD don't just like to chill, they prefer to be moving and active. C-5-Air is telling us that he's been grinding in the streets, as we know he commonly raps about gang activity.
Streets taught me don't trust a thing. Streets told me I end up dead if I keep trusting everyone I meet.
We now get to hear a list of lessons C-5-Air learned from his time spent grinding on the streets of Linton and Evansville. He learned not to trust a thing. Not just people, but also things. C-5-Air knows that even looks can be deceiving, and nothing should be trusted beyond its surface level. If he keeps trusting everyone he meets, he will end up dead. This is likely referencing the time he spent dealing drugs. He had no choice but to trust strangers in order to sell them drugs. He is acknowledging that the path that he was on would certainly end up in him tragically losing his life. The next two verses are a direct repetition of the verses he had in the beginning of the song, so I'm going to skip over them and go to the very last verse of this track.
I made ends meet, saved I got up out of this town. Everything's improving, grew my bank account and my sound.
I made ends meet, saved it, got up out of this town. Here he's walking us through the time he moved to Evansville. He made his ends meet, started getting paid, saved up his money, and moved out of Linton, Indiana. Showing us that he is on the come up, he says that everything in his life is improving. His bank account is growing, and his sound, aka his music, is also growing. This has a double meaning that the production and sound of his music literally sounds larger, and also that the audience size of his music has increased.
I quit all of the drugs, but I don't really light up a pound. Smoke the pain away, I need advice, don't need no more sound. Out of you, you need to know who you talking to. Got a clue, UV blue erases my altitude.
He says that he's quit all of the drugs he once did. However, all he needs is an invitation to smoke, and he will light up a pound of marijuana. He justifies this by saying that he would do so in order to smoke all the pain away, likely talking about those painful memories of his childhood. The only way for him to feel better is to smoke his pain away, detailing his reason for abusing drugs in the first place. He admits that he needs it as a vice, then once again tells the listener that he does not need any advice from them. This is an increasingly common theme throughout this album so far. C-5-Air really would not like for you to offer him advice. He does not want any more sound out of you, even putting the listener in a hypothetical situation in which he asks them if they know who they're talking to. This is a way for him to look down on the listener and portray himself as having more authority, that you should not even have the audacity to speak to him. He ends the line by admitting that he needs UV Blue, a cheap and easily accessible alcoholic beverage, in order to elevate his mood.
This is closure, give me some exposure. Pulled his body out of his shirt, I'm a vulture.
He closes this third song out by calling his bars closure. This could be the closure of him finally admitting to his past traumas and being vulnerable in a track, or just the closure to the song. He manifests that his album will give him exposure, hoping that this will change his life even more. He ends the song with a strangely chilling line about pulling somebody's body out of their shirt like a vulture. He is saying that he used a gun to blast somebody's chest out of their clothes. He pulled his body out of their shirt, similarly to how a vulture would pull the insides of an animal out of its carcass. The beat remains dark until it ends shortly after another audio clip from C-5-Air's producer. Then we begin the fourth track, How You Gonna Hate. Let's dive in.
They hate to see a young man win. They hate that they can't touch my chin. They hate that I got something to spend. I love that hate I get. Go get more money, more gold, more ice, my hoes. Take my Rari to the store. Got me all cramped up, now I'm all sore.
Entering a new soundscape, we leave the darkness of struggle, and we are surrounded by an uplifting trumpet melody. C-5-Air immediately jumps out the gate, coming at his haters, saying that they hate to see a young man win, crediting jealousy as the driving factor behind why they frequently show dislike towards him. They hate to see his success, and they hate to see him get money. To make matters worse, they also hate that they cannot test his chin. Here, C-5-Air is boasting about his fighting ability, claiming that he has a strong chin, meaning that he is very difficult to knock out. He suggests that he can eat many punches, meaning that no matter how much they hate him, there's nothing they can do to him. He invites the hatred by saying that he loves it. He then tells his haters to go do something more productive, like getting money, gold and ice, meaning gold and diamond jewelry, and more female companions. Rather than waste their time hating on him, C-5-Air chooses difficult tasks, like getting jewelry and loads of money, to taunt his haters further. He's asking them to do something he can achieve, but they cannot. After telling his haters to go do something more productive, he flexes on them by saying that he is sore because he just casually drove his Ferrari, a car typically ranging upwards of $250,000, to the store, flexing how much status he has even going about daily errands like shopping. He stands out, even just driving to the store.
I don't see how all you pussies get so hurt. I can't take this shit no more. I gotta leave or it'll get worse. Put a clip all on your body. Tell your homies this is war. Bang your clip, now I'm on tour. Rob your shit when I get bored.
Next, C-5-Air is questioning how the people in his city get so offended and hurt by his successes. It is driving him to the point of insanity where he feels that he can no longer live amongst them, stating that he needs to leave or else it is only going to get progressively worse for him. He is now turning against Evansville, the very city that he's calling home, because it's no longer feeling like home. At this point, we know that C-5-Air has moved to Evansville to deal drugs with his brother. These lines offer a narrative that C-5-Air was finding much success while trapping with his older brother, talking about driving a sports car and having lots of disposable income. He now feels like he has to leave it all behind due to the hate coming from his opposition in Evansville. Before leaving, he declares that this means war. He says that he will put a clip all on their body, meaning that he will unload several bullets onto them when he catches them. Then he tells his ops to tell their homies that this is war, saying that he will bang their clique, which is slang for shooting all the members of his haters' crew, and then go on singing his music with no remorse. He also says that he will rob your house whenever he has nothing else to do, painting himself as a threat and forcing the idea that the only thing between him and all of your possessions is a little bit of boredom.
How you gonna hate? Say it to my face. Tell me when you hate. Do you feel less lame? How you gonna hate? Say it to my face. Clean your body up. I won't leave a trace.
Here we've reached the main chorus of track number 4. C-5-Air wants to know why his haters feel the way they do. He wonders if their hatred is a misdirection of their own unhappiness, questioning whether it makes their lives more interesting to interfere with his. He's tired of online back and forth, inviting his haters to come say it directly to his face. This also calls back to the Facebook posts by Bristol and Veronica used to slander C-5-Air out of his first album's progress, as mentioned in track number 2. He is fed up with the fake living. If you want to hate on him, balls up and come do it to his face. He gives us a warning of what will happen to those who decide to step up and say something. He will clean their body up without a trace, insinuating and threatening homicide against his listener and anyone else who dare confront him in person, while dropping a hint that he will do so efficiently that he will not be caught or persecuted by authorities.
I don't need you, I just need truth. I don't please you, find a new dude. I don't change for bitches, I just change my clothes. You got change for M's, Didn't think so, ho.
It seems that C-5-Air has redirected his writing back to his love interest from track 1, saying that he doesn't need her, he just needs the truth. We know that from the first track, this woman often spits whack, aka lies, in order to deceive him to take advantage of his newfound money. He then tells her that she's better off finding a new romantic partner if he doesn't please her, because he entirely refuses to change himself for her. He gives us a new piece of his moral street code by saying that he doesn't change for women, he only changes his clothes, showing that he cares more for his fashion sense than he does a woman's love. He then keeps playing on the word change by putting himself above potential love interests by asking if they have change for millions of dollars. This is a way for him to entice the woman, but also to insult her simultaneously.
Oh, you got bread? Think you got dough? You thought the shit was sweet, but it was sourdough. But now you need cheese. Better say please. I keep cheddar now, shred 'em cause you cannot squeeze.
The next series of lines demonstrate C-5-Air's creativity within his bars. In case the person he was taunting really did have change for M's, C-5-Air plays it safe by adding a verse for them too. Each bar here has a double meaning. While he is referencing various food items, he is not actually talking about food. Oh, you got bread. C-5-Air is surprised someone actually had change for M's, using bread as slang for cash. He asks them if they truly believe they've got dough, using dough as slang for cash again, asking them, are you sure you've got it like I've got it? He then feeds us a double entendre. You thought the shit was sweet, but it was sourdough. Continuing the food-themed bars, he creates the double by using sourdough to sound like sour though. He thought the shit was sweet, but it was sour though, meaning his opposition thought things were all good, just to find out the hard way that this was not the case. Here, C-5-Air might be admitting to a murder or another form of violence. Next, it seems like the same person who had been playing with C-5-Air's time was in need of financial assistance, using words like cheese and cheddar to symbolize his money, telling them they need to beg for his help. He closes the stanza out with shred 'em because he cannot squeeze. This goes along with his cheese lines, using words like shred and squeeze, which are two common ways cheese can be found. Also meaning he shredded or killed the person because they could not squeeze, meaning they didn't have the guts to pull a trigger, something that goes against C-5-Air's moral code.
This the type of shit they hate to hear me rap about. Had to move down from the north cause everything back home is south.
C-5-Air says this subject matter is particularly what his ops hate to hear him rap about. If C-5-Air was truly referencing a murder that he committed, this could be what his rivals hate to hear. They would hate to hear him rap about killing one of their partners. He justifies why he's living in Evansville in the first place, saying that he had to move down from the north because everything back home went south. A clever play on direction, as south is typically the direction that faces straight down, saying that he moved down from the north, which would be Linton, to the south, which is Evansville, also stating that he did so because everything back home went south, meaning that things were not going in his favor.
This ain't all my rep, but I just wanna buy my mama a house. Listerine is my new name, the way they switched it in their mouth.
C-5-Air again calls out his haters and women who have dissed on his reputation, saying that they are spending their energy hating on a guy who was just grinding to obtain a higher standard of living for him and his mother. C-5-Air then makes a comedic bar about how his new name is Listerine, since his haters swish his name around their mouths, joking about how his name is frequently in his haters' mouths, just like mouthwash.
How you gonna hate? How you gonna hate? Life's a race, but you're a bitch. How does last place taste? How you gonna beat my ass when you can't beat a case? I got lead in a stick, like a pencil get erased.
We go back to the main How You Gonna Hate chorus. However, this is a prime version, as the lyrics have been slightly altered for this section of the song. He begins taunting the listener by saying, "Life's a race, but you're a bitch. How does last place taste?" This line does not have much meaning to it, other than just to be a nuisance towards his audience. He continues taunting one of his ops, Jonah Whitgreen, with bars like, "How you gonna beat my ass when you can't beat a case?" A clear reference to the time Jonah had been arrested for methamphetamine possession at Allen's Motel in Linton. Jonah's been one of C-5-Air's biggest ops since the late 2010s. In 2020, video surfaced of C-5-Air pulling up on Jonah Whitgreen while Jonah was out walking alone late at night. C-5-Air hops out of a vehicle and begins trying to beat Jonah up. Jonah could be seen running away from C-5-Air and the vehicle. The video lasts for about 15 seconds and then ends. Later in 2020, a FaceTime call revealed threats from Jonah that he was going to shoot C-5-Air. Well, here C-5-Air is 5 years later, bullet-free, stating that he's got lead in a stick, like a pencil, get erased. Another bar with the double meaning. He had lead in a stick like a pencil, as a pencil is just a stick with lead or graphite in the center. The pencil also has an eraser on the end. In this context, C-5-Air uses lead in a stick to mean bullets in a gun, as lead is slang for bullets and a stick is slang for a heavy-duty handgun. He then says get erased, meaning to be shot and killed, having your existence erased. He is directing this lie towards Jonah.
VVS is why I glow, but they act like they don't know. All my chains are real, all my watches snow.
C-5-Air gives credit to his VVS diamonds for being the reason that he glows. These could be the VVS diamonds in his expensive earrings, chain, rings, or watch. He follows it up with a line about how those who do not want to see him succeed act like they don't know his bling is real ice. Without saying it, C-5-Air implies that his haters have been going through some of the stages of grief. Grieving over what, you might ask? Well, the fact that the one who they tried to keep down is now on top. They try to convince themselves that they don't know his ice is real. They are in denial, which is the first stage of grief. The second stage of grief is anger, which C-5-Air also reports plenty of throughout this album. There is no doubt that C-5-Air's haters are grieving over the level of success that he has found. His ice is so cold that it literally snows, and that makes his haters bitter and cold.
What more do I have to rap to change my life? Used to fuck with school, but hard to ace a test when homies died.
In this line, C-5-Air begs the question, at this point, what else does he have to rap about to blow up and change his life forever? He feels that he's already sacrificed and put so much of himself out there that he might not have more to give. You can tell he's hungry and he's desperate for the win. We get another bar that takes us deep into the life of C-5-Air. He tells us that he used to enjoy school, possibly even achieving good grades, but it became difficult for him to focus on his academics while struggling with the death of one of his friends. C-5-Air is showing his vulnerability here. This offers the listener another puzzle piece as to why his character is the way it is.
I never lied on the grave, that's how I live. Hella money to the family when I make it big. I won't ever get there if I give a shit about a word I haters say. That's on gang, that's just how a kid was raised. Never fold or say their name.
C-5-Air writes another one of his moral codes by telling us that he never lies on his deceased friend's grave. He begins listing future plans for how he will distribute his financial successes amongst his family, telling us that he will eventually give them hella money whenever he makes it big. He keeps his focus to the end of the track by reminding himself that he will never reach his full potential if he focuses on the hate from the outside world, giving it the seal of his approval by putting his word on his gang, because that is how he was taught. The last line of the song poses a few questions and leaves the listener wondering exactly what he means. His last sentence is, never fold or say their name. We know never fold is slang for not snitching and staying true to your morals, never breaking or bending against what you believe in. But never say their name is just left up for interpretation. Some may assume that he means to never snitch, even on your opposition when being interrogated. It is likely that C-5-Air believes that in the case an individual is being interrogated by law enforcement, it is best to never mention another individual's name under any circumstance, even if they're out to get you. This is clearly C-5-Air laying his street code out for us before we move on to track number 5. And before we do that, I think it's time to reevaluate what's been built so far throughout the past 4 tracks. We now have a deeper understanding of what C-5-Air's life has looked like outside of music. We understand many of his personal relationships and the personal beliefs he holds. We are beginning to better understand why he believes he's not the same from the rest of the society. He's thrown religion aside, he's thrown family aside, education and even love aside. C-5-Air's moral code rejects all the things that most of us desire for his love for money, respect, dominance, and control.